Klink and its evolution line are the main example most Gen 5 haters point to, but even though it is my least favorite Gen 2, I really like these guys. Forwarding them all, and sadly Klink itself is not very good in battle. You usually find it around the levels of the mid-20s, but it doesn't evolve until level 38. And in that time frame, its 55 attack and 70 defense isn't terrible, but it's definitely not good. But being a pure steel type on its own is worth something, with its 11 resistances and an immunity, and its move pool is also pretty decent. So I don't think that it can really be any lower than 3 stars in battle prowess. And as for availability, the only places you can get it that we count are around the 5th gym in Unova and its sequels, and like right away in Galar. So that does average it out to 3.5 stars. However, even if I like this line personally, I understand the dislike for sure. At least conceptually, they're very simply just a set of gears. There's really not a whole lot else to say about them, and sadly, I think that's 1 star. Yet even with that bare bones concept, I like its design. It's fairly unique looking, and the face packs a surprising amount of character with the little green nose, the one eye wide open, the other one patched shut, and the little wide open mouth. I would even argue that it's fairly cute. You guys voted it around 3 stars, and I agree, so we'll go with that. Which does round Klink's final score to 2.625 stars overall and a spot on the bottom 5. Klang sure is a Pokemon. Forwarding them all, and I kid, I do actually kind of like it, and it's surprisingly solid in battle. Of course, being a pure steel type is great on its own, but its stats are also pretty good. They're fairly well rounded, with both of its defenses and both of its attacks being pretty solid, which it can take advantage of with moves like Gear Grind, Charge Beam, Autotomize, and plenty of great TM options. The later evolution level does hold it back a bit, but its crazy amount of resistances, good stats, and good move pool I think give it around 4 stars in battle prowess. But again, here in Unova, its evolution level is just ridiculous for a 2nd stage Pokemon. Sure, if you catch one in Unova, you only need about 10 levels to evolve, but in Galar, you need about 30. So its Galar score specifically will take a hit, but its score still ends up being 3.5 stars. However, I do think that it takes a bit of a step up conceptually. Klink was a very literal set of gears, but Klang at least has the ability to fire off the smaller one repeatedly in attack, and what happens if it doesn't return? It's gotta be worth something. 1.5 stars. And design-wise, I sadly just don't think there's really much to say here. It does, of course, carry over the character of Klink's face, literally, but the larger gear isn't even like a gear Pokemon, it's just a literal gear. It looks cooler for sure, but I think it's a bit of a downgrade in design, 2.5 stars. So that does give Klang the final score of 2.875 stars overall, just barely avoiding the bottom 5. Gen 5 may have my least or 2nd least favorite decks, but Klink Klang, contrary to popular opinion, is not one of the reasons. Forwarding them all, and outside of that, it's even pretty awesome in battle. 100 attack, 115 defense, 85 special defense, and 90 speed? Sure, those aren't amazing stats, but they are very good and well-rounded, which works great with its steel typing's host of great resistances. And it has the move pool to take advantage, with the effectively 100 base power Gear Grind and ways to set up with Charge Beam, Autotomize, and the broken Shift Gear. It also gets plenty of awesome TMs. Sure, its special attack is only 70, but that's good enough to make good use of Volt Switch at least. I just wish it had something even remotely useful for an ability. But even without one, I think that's around a 4.5 in battle prowess. And like Klang before, its evolution level is ridiculous, but I do think that Klang gets more of the penalty here, as it only takes like 11 more levels to get to the final stage. So it'll stay 3.5 stars. Concept, however, has been this line's downfall, as they are all just more or less literal sets of gears. I do like how Klink Klang at least grabs a bunch of different types of gears and merges them into its own mechanical contraption of a Pokemon, but it's still more or less just gears. 1.5 stars. But this Pokemon is one of the reasons why concept and design are separate in this series. Sure, this is not a very interesting Pokemon at all conceptually, but it looks awesome. I like how the Klink and the Klang don't actually fundamentally change, they just add more moving parts to the design as it grows. I like the red power core jewel bearing and the mechanical spiky ring that's actually inanimate. Its static official art really doesn't do it justice here, and for once I think both the 2D and 3D sprites come together to showcase the life of this Pokemon, especially with the angle that the 2D sprite is at, where you can see all of the different gears moving. The votes were surprisingly evenly spread with this one, but I'm going to agree with the higher ones and give it 4 stars, which in turn does give Klink Klang the final score of 3.375 stars overall.